We are back, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode, The Man That Fell to Earth. Have my co-host here, Lucas. What's going on, good sir?
Hey, nothing much. And if you are not pleased with this body, you should just say so.
Look, all I'm gonna say with this show, man, I'm starting to love it. Um, there's something so natural about how it's progressing
Mm-hmm.
that it reminds me of, you know how like Westworld, like the first season of Westworld,
Yep.
how this started to like unravel, and like the more things were going, the more you're intrigued to see how far they could go with it.
Yeah,
I don't want to curse this show, but
yeah,
it
because you just
feels
did
like,
by saying Westworld.
yeah, exactly. So I don't want this one to go down that road, but it's getting so good, man. And so with this episode, we're gonna be tag teaming this one because there's certain things that I'm kind of like missing pockets of, and certain things he's got. But the gist of it is they're trying to get what's
A
the
patent,
wizard's name?
the
Uh,
brother.
yeah, the brother is trying to get the sisters acknowledgement of what they're trying to do to get the patent.
Well,
And yeah,
hold up, he's not. He doesn't want her to know they're trying to get what they need to get the patent.
true,
Because if she knew what happened, then all of their leverage would be gone. So they're attempting to figure out a pathway to getting a control of the company.
mm-hmm.
And once they get control of the company, get control of the patent, which they need to produce their product.
Right.
So this was the scheme that Hatch came up with in finding a way around it instead of telling his sister that they actually need the patent. Because if they tell her they need the patent, then she can basically, well,
Say
she would know
screw you.
that, and all the leverage would be on her end. So
Right.
they're attempting to take away the leverage here. So this whole episode here was one setting up the meeting
Mm-hmm.
so they could get control of the patent and get control of the company. And then we'll get the interesting stuff that happens here as we finally get it revealed about Justin's past and why she's so traumatized by science. And we get key elements of what happened to Thomas Newton.
Right. That's the thing. There's a lot of things that are kind of uncovered in this episode. So I guess let's tackle Justin first, because Justin initially, she was starting to feel like she was getting emotionally compromised. Like I think even beforehand, she had talked to her dad on the phone and was like, "Dad, I don't know if I can do this." And he was like, "You can do this. You're fine. Like I'm not a hindrance to you anymore." But then she brought up the name, and he immediately, his mannerism just changed. He was like, "It's gonna be okay," and he was trying to be the support system for her because he didn't realize that she was pitfalling. Um, and so the gist of it is that I guess I don't know their relationship. Were they science partners together with the
Yes.
relationship, or if it was that he was in a relationship with her and then he became ill. The way that it was alluded to, they were working together.
Yeah,
Almost.
they were scientists together
Mm-hmm.
here, and because of her need, and because of their need, because it wasn't just her, it was their
Right.
need to get quantum, what's it,
Quantum fusion. They were
quantum
trying to
fusion, and to
achieve it.
achieve quantum fusion,
Mm-hmm.
they pushed the boundaries of doing it. And when they pushed those boundaries, that's when we had the big issue here
Mm-hmm.
at this episode. Because remember, at the beginning of the episode, he just shows up playing the piano with her.
Right.
And it's a very touching moment. And then magically one tooth falls out. And then multiple teeth fell out.
Right.
Which the moment I saw that, I said, it's radiation poisoning. And then they go into the trauma of it being he died from that. And because she feels she did it. So that's the guilt attached to her. And that's why she doesn't want to do anything, have anything to do actually with experiments or science at this point.
Yeah, because it's kind of like at what cost did she achieve what she was trying to get?
Yeah.
And it didn't make sense for a while because I was like, why is she so off of this? Like I get, for years, the responsibility is shifted. But I was like, what really happened? And then when you saw it, this is a weird thing. When all the teeth came out, it reminded me of when, Faraday spit out all
The water.
no, remember when he spit out all the rings?
When he got the coins.
Right. And so I was like, wait, what is this? Is this like a dream because she's so connected to Faraday? And then I was like, whoa, this is actually a memory. What in the world happened? And then gradually, as things start to escalate and more pressure starts to build, her anxiety starts to build. And with her anxiety, then you start to actually see the flashback. You start to see them having an actual relationship. You start to see that he got exposed to the radiation, extreme levels of it, because they were trying to push like you said, trying to push the envelope further than they should have. And he died and succumbed to it. But we didn't realize is that he died and she was pregnant. And so her daughter is his child. And so it's like she's literally watching and seeing a living embodiment of the person that she failed, like forever. And so it was kind of like she kind of told the story. I think she told it to Faraday or somebody else.
It was to Faraday when she told the story of what happened between them and her fear at first with the baby, that the baby could possibly have some effects from radiation poisoning.
Right.
And how she was always taking her to doctor back and forth to make sure everything was fine.
Yep.
And how she blamed herself for Danny's death, because that was the key part here.
Yeah.
She completely blamed everything that happened to him. It's weird because she took away his blame for it completely. She absolved him of everything just because he passed away.
Right.
So then she put all the weight on herself, and that's just why Josiah's basically telling her, like, hey, that's not what happened. That's not what you need to do. That doesn't serve a good purpose for you to put it all on yourself. Because they also bring up at one point that Josiah didn't want them to do it. As Hatch's sister Edie brings up, like, when she reads her entire file to everybody to let her know exactly what happened and why you're not a scientist anymore. And when it happened, she brought up Josiah's name, said, even your father didn't want you to do that. But again, it backfired on her in the end. I guess we'll get back to when it backfired her in the end. But here is just setting up of the meeting and then the breakdown that happens after setting up the meeting.
Right.
Again, this show does a great job about balancing the comedic elements with the dramatic elements.
Yeah.
Just from the setup of the meeting and how Faraday is just irritated with all the gifts that they get. Basically saying the pineapple would have been perfect. Why would someone sit this bare?
Oh man. And so I think you're right. Like down to the sister's son, which I think that was one of the first things that we saw was like him kind of driving down the road.
Coked out completely.
Right. He was all jacked up. But then I was kind of like, it seemed like he had Tourette's. Because it was either Tourette's or it was like he had a speech impediment. I can't really sure.
It was a tick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He had an extreme nervous tick. That's why he was doing the whistling like the bird all the time.
Yeah.
And it really brings up a key point for me. He was doing all of that to address his pain.
Right.
Because that's another element of this episode is which I don't know when we didn't pick up before that Faraday can smell pain.
Yeah, I know he
smell fear. I'm sorry. Smell fear on you.
Yeah.
And when you're fearful, it does, as it's been rumored before, that says it emits something on you when you're scared of things.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the way he copes. The son copes with everything. It's just by doing drugs. And you can see he is scatterbrained. Like it's possibly ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Because she said, well, this week you're this. This week you're this. This week you're this. Like clearly he switches jobs.
Right.
Every time he gets the opportunity to do so.
It's sad though, because it seemed like he was actually a good kid. It seems like he's terrified of his mom.
Yes.
I don't know what she did to him, but based on how the relationship she has with her brother, it's no telling. Like she's kind of like coming at him at certain points in this episode. Like I was like, he's scared. Like he's backing away, like she was about to hit him. Like
I would almost say it's the same form of intimidation that it seems like they were raised with.
Yeah.
If you go, because if you pay attention to the other episode, the part episode when Edie and Hatch are talking,
right,
about their father, and we realized that she had taken all the blame away from her father and put it on him, and he was like, "No, that was him,
right?
That wasn't me." Like you've coded over it to paint him as like this perfect person when you've completely forgotten what he did to us,
right?
Which is odd because she's the oldest.
Exactly. Like normally that would be the younger, but she's kind of put herself on this platform like she acts like she's the oldest. Like she's act like this is her birthright to take the helm this way or that way.
And it's almost
Um,
like she doesn't want to blame the father for anything.
yeah, yeah. So I'm really curious about the dynamics of their relationship, like her relationship with her son. And I really want to see like kind of a flashback to see kind of like what went down with something. It's very interesting relationships. It's really messed up, but it's really interesting.
I think the
Um,
flashback would deal probably more with the dad
yeah,
and what the dad did, because that's what this whole episode, which is inaptly titled Under Pressure, but this whole episode is about people being under pressure and how they respond to it.
yeah,
Like, I don't think she did anything horrible to her son. She just puts a lot of pressure on him. But she learns that because her dad put a lot of pressure on them.
right.
And he was a horrible, as Hatch describes him, he was a horrible person.
Yeah. Yeah, because she told her her son, like, yeah, you know that stuff you use, yeah, give him some of that. Like
Hey,
whatever you gotta do. Like figure it out.
I mean, even the scene where they're going around her, I want to say like, her office, and she kept on saying, "Did you eat in here? Smells like food in here. Smells like food in here." The whole time
Hmm.
it's a dead bird.
Right.
Like, how do you equate that smell to food?
Right. It's really she's really strange, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you.
She's completely stressed.
But she's emotionless. She doesn't I've not seen her have an actual emotional reaction outside of maybe a little bit of agitation and anger, but I haven't seen her have like an emotional response really. I think the closest that she got was when the CIA agent came up to her and and she was like, "Yeah, excuse him, get him out of here." He's like, "I'm not going anywhere." And she said, "What? No, you getting out of here. This is my like, no. You don't understand. Your dad, you know, your dad you idolize, he's a puppet. Like we
See,
used
but
him."
and this is the way that whole facade of her will break away.
Yeah.
Again, that conversation later on in the episode breaks away her whole facade moving forward of who her dad was.
Right.
Because I think that's the key element here is always it's breaking what she thought her father was because it's already broken with Hatch.
Right.
Hatch believes none of that because he knows that's not true.
Exactly.
She has sugarcoated it, and her mind has like warped into a sense of dad was damn near perfect.
Hmm.
Dad did everything great, and Hatch like he was a horrible person.
Right.
But this is the beginning of the breakdown for her. But I mean, what the next biggest part to talk about is the CIA agent
Yeah. It is.
and him on the search for Thomas Newton's old girlfriend.
So okay, this is where you're gonna have to fill in the blanks for me because I was like, I read her, I was like, wait, her name is actually in the original one. So I was like, who is this chick? So can you tell me a little bit of context of who she is in conjunction to Thomas? Based on I
If,
guess the original.
if I'm not mistaken, she's his love interest from the original.
Oh wow.
So in here, she tells the whole backstory of she fell in love with him.
Hmm.
And when she fell in love with Thomas, she thought she can be with Thomas. Even though Thomas told her, like, back on his planet, he had a wife, he had everything humanly possible, everything he wanted was back home. But
Mm,
she, being selfish, wanted to hold on to Thomas. And by holding on to him, she did the one thing to him that she knew he couldn't take. That was introducing him to the bottle.
right.
So,
Mary
I
Lou.
mean,
That's her
yeah,
name.
even in the original movie, um, that's Thomas's downfall is
Mm,
that he gets hooked on alcohol and things of this nature. So the point that they again backplaying it, basically making this a sequel to the original movie,
yeah.
but now we finally get to see her understand the damage that she did to Thomas.
Yeah. Even how that even played out, like CIA agent was like, all right. Well, no, I think it was interesting because the girl he finally revealed well, the girl found out in her own mind, like, look, this dude's an alien. Like this is
Yep.
and he was like, oh, now you're caught up to speed. Cool. And then she gave him some interesting information. It's like, okay, there's a great lead. You should have led with that. All right, I'm gonna go visit her. He gets there, he tries to kind of infiltrate a little bit, and it works for everybody else except for her. And then once he gets the calf out or whatever, they shoot their shot or whatever, shoot their conversation, and
That was a disgusting scene.
yeah, he almost threw up all over himself. But when he said this is about Thomas Newton, and she thought, oh, finally, I can finally be relieved. This is my time for penance. And like when she goes to that beehive, dog,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sitting there seeing bees going into her mouth. I was like, she's gonna die from
The
all
whole
that.
goal is just she was the key corruptor of Thomas in the original.
Right.
So all of this is her, like, again, for people who love the original, this is the perfect ending for them, for Mary Lou. I mean, we know she introduced Thomas to church, she introduced him to sex, she introduced him to alcohol. Like, all of this was because of her. So because she is the key breaking point of Thomas Newton, for us to even see her in the moment they brought up that she had rehabilitated herself and everything from the whole speech when they were looking for someone to point them in a direction where Thomas was, I found that hilarious. I said, "Oh, this woman is a miserable, horrible woman, especially from the film. Like, she's a miserable, horrible woman. So for everything to change because of this happening, like this, it added an element to this show that the show needed, because you got to always go back to the beginning. You always got to go back to the film to connect it to the show, to explicitly explain to anyone who's watching this show, like, this is a direct sequel of the film. Like, this isn't a retelling of the story, which is what I think I questioned in episode 1 and or 2. I fully question if we're getting a sequel to the movie, or were we getting a retelling of the show. The moment you introduce an older Mary Lou, who we kind of see her older Mary Lou again, for anybody who's not seen the movie, this is where you may need to watch the movie. This is where you may need to go back to refresh your memory if you have not seen it in a while. Like, we see an older Mary Lou at the end of the film because of after everything that her and Thomas has gone through. Um, their ending together in the movie is comical and yet sad at the same time, where they have the saddest sex humanly possible. He realizes that his prison is no longer there. He escapes out of it, but then he collapses at the end of the movie asking for her in a restaurant. So it's
Wow.
because and this plays an element of that music box and everything that Faraday was saying, he was saying in that music box.
Hmm.
By the end of the movie, Thomas has come to a realization he can't return home.
Mm.
Mary Lou is the reason why. She's completely corrupted him.
So then that's the segue into the actual music box, because the platform for that,
Uh-huh.
Faraday was asking the son, like, where is the music box? And the son goes and blows the smoke into his face, and Faraday starts having an instant reaction. He was like, I can't handle any of this. Starts sweating profusely, and then he was like, it's a sphere. Where's the sphere at? And then he starts to get scared, and so he gives him the sphere, and he puts the music box in. He starts to listen and audibly hears exactly what's going on. It's such a really good scene because you see like the horses in the backdrop coming in. They start getting like ravenous and upset and agitated. But Faraday, more than anybody, he has an emotional reaction to the point that he feels real raw sadness. And he's connecting with the sadness because that's what a human would do. Like, you start to feel something, you feel like, oh wow, like, I can't believe this is happening. We shouldn't be able to feel this. And he didn't know what to do with it. It crippled him, literally.
Yeah.
But the way that they did it, it was beautiful and sad all at the same time.
They played it that way because it was never a music box. The kid just thought it was a music box because when he asked him, he said some emo, like dolphin type, jazz type music. Like, he couldn't even describe it.
Right.
But it was nothing but, again, it was a message from Thomas to his actual wife.
Right.
Of why I can't return home. That's all it was. A message why I cannot return home. But this allowed Faraday to see the issues with being a human. Like, these are the issues we go through being human. These emotions are what you feel by being human. And this helps. I think it helps him better understand what happened to Thomas.
Yeah.
Because again, back in his home planet, they knew they sent Thomas. No one knew exactly what happened to him.
Right.
Here, this shows you like this is what fully happened to Thomas. Because this box tells the whole story of everything. So that's the more interesting part, is that this box tells Thomas his whole story. Everything that happened with Thomas is what Faraday is listening to. So why is a message to his wife is also him telling his wife everything that happened.
So do you think also like that made Faraday fearful that he could succumb to the same thing? Because the reason I asked that is because he had this conversation with Justin, because Justin was there for him, like explaining to him, like, this is what you're feeling, this is what's going on. And he really needed her. Like he was like, I need you to hold me up right now because I can't deal.
Part of it is I figured that part of that was the drug.
Do you think it was the drug, or you think it was a combination of the drug and what he was hearing?
But see, if he goes back to what, not to sound like Spock, his logical way of thinking, the message on his own possibly wouldn't have fully broke him that way. But you introduce that drug into his body, it lets him hear the message completely differently.
Wow.
Because he was like on a trip. If anyone knows what a trip is.
Yeah.
He was on a trip at that point.
Yeah. I'm just curious because I felt like a part of him was scared. It was something that he said to her specifically. How could this, what was it that triggered him to go down this route? How can this happen to us? And so I was kind of like, I was wondering if he's curious that because what happened was he said that, but then the catalyst, of course, is Mary Lou. But then he's needing Justin. And I'm wondering if that same exact dependency is going to end up happening with Justin. That's exactly what he's asking or fearing. Because I don't think he...
Well, Thomas's issues with Mary Lou and his with Justin are not remotely close to being the same thing.
You don't think they could be? Eventually?
No. Because Justin doesn't do drugs. Justin doesn't drink. Mary Lou basically told you she trapped Thomas. She says it in this episode. I trapped him. I did the one thing I knew that he couldn't resist, and the one thing I knew that would keep him here. And that was a bottle of gin. And I used that to my advantage. And keep in mind, alcohol dehydrates you. We've clearly seen in this episode, including when that drug hit his system, the reason it hits him is because drugs normally dehydrate you.
Interesting. So I guess this is a weird question to ask, because I feel like after this episode, I feel like eventually Freddy may make it back to his planet and they may show what that's going to look like. But do you think, and I mean, I guess the question to you, do you think that he would stay for Justin?
No.
You don't think he really would?
He's married already.
I know that.
With children.
I know that.
No. He has no romantic interest in her.
Not necessarily romance, but dependency.
No. He has no dependency on her. This whole thing has not shown him to have any form of a dependence on her at all.
I think the reason why I asked that is because he keeps going back to, I need you to do this. I need you to do this. But this was the first episode that he alluded that was the first thing I said to you. I need you to complete this, and we legitimately need each other to do it. Now, for her life's work to be done, yes, I get it. For him to be able to preserve and salvage their planet, yes. But a part of this is they also have to be on sync because they're doing this all together, ultimately. And I'm not saying that Hatch isn't directly involved. I'm not saying Thomas isn't feeding information as needed and required. But it's something about the way that they said that verbalization that I'm kind of curious about. But I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong.
It's just that they need each other. Like, he needs her to save his planet.
Yeah.
So he needs her to save his children.
Yeah.
He's going to do whatever he has to do for her to save his kids. Because he's referenced his children multiple times already.
He has.
Yeah. And this isn't, it doesn't even come across as a realistic chance of a romantic anything. And now that he heard this message from Thomas, any opportunity that could present itself would never happen.
Yeah, he's gonna definitely try to fight anything like that moving forward.
But I don't think Justin wants anything to do with him that way. He's a means to an end to her.
I don't know, bro. I feel like
Justin's not. They pinpointed this episode. She's not in the position to ever fully give herself to anyone, especially anyone that, as it pertains to being in this field after, because Danny was the love of her life.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And this happened to her with him.
Yeah, I agree. What I'm saying is that she was dealing with the anxiety of everything that was going on and she was pitfalling, right? But she was going to Faraday to let him know, I gotta quit. I think she was literally going up there to find him like, I can't do this anymore. You're gonna have to do this on your own. You have to figure it out on your own because it's too much. I'm compromised emotionally. He broke down. She made herself completely available for him. And in turn, that allowed her to be able to heal through her process as well. You see what I'm saying? So it's like there's no implications of a romantic anything, but she was able to get over her hump because of him, and he needed her to get over his emotional hump.
Doesn't that sound like Friends?
It does, but anyway, we'll see. I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna let it go for now. But
yeah,
I don't know.
That right. Yeah, that's all that is right there. Again, Faraday's mission. Again, his mission is done there because of his family. That's the only reason he's on this mission is because of his family. No other purpose. He has no other purpose. Keep in mind, not only does he have no other purpose, if you pay attention to a lot of things he do, he can clearly care less what happens to the planet once he leaves.
I agree. For now, I don't think he really cares.
Yeah, he could care less what happens to the planet when he leaves. All he is focused on is my family. I'm doing this for them. And I need this device to be created so we'll be fine on my world.
Yeah, I think I'm not saying I'm prophesying any of this. There are breadcrumbs there that to me could lead into where this could go. And I think a reason why I bring all this up is because I harpen back to the original episode, the very first episode when he's well put together. Like he's all the way well put together and everything. And I was kind of wondering, I was like, so did Faraday get to a point that he kind of was like Thomas in a way? He learned from Thomas, but then he also dealt with the human side of all this. Because I felt like the other side of this is that, yeah, he was under pressure to figure out what he was going to do. But then the human side of the consequence of being a human in this situation put him at a disability. But he also learned something at the same time.
For who?
I think that he was compromised because of the drugs and the emotions feeling with what happened with Thomas.
No, well, keep in mind, like Thomas was only compromised by living a human lifestyle. Right. That's what Mary Lou did to him. But if you pay attention to Faraday, none of that is happening.
Nah, it's not yet.
Because again, he picked the perfect person to help him. Because Thomas gave him the people to help him. These are people that's not going to live a lifestyle that remotely comes close to what it would take to break Faraday. They are only there to serve a purpose. Every single one of them are there to serve a strict purpose. He could care less about anything else. As long as his purpose is served, they can move forward. But I believe if one of them stops serving his purpose, he will get rid of them in a heartbeat.
Dang,
because he just doesn't. Again, he understands the corruption that happened with Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
But his mission is so important that where's that pull coming from for him to complete it? It's when him and Justin had that conversation and he talked about his family.
Yeah,
that's his pull. Nothing else matters to him.
Yeah.
Here, he was just on a trip. And now he gets to fully understand why Thomas broke.
Yeah.
I mean, you could clearly tell by that from the beginning of the episode. It's a comedic moment, but it's saying a lot if you pay attention to it. The moment he walks out the room and he's naked, and they comment, we don't talk to people while we're naked. And he said, it's sad you're using all of this other things to just cover up your natural selves.
Right.
He wasn't just talking about covering up your natural selves in the sense of covering up your bodies. He's talking about covering up everything else that humans do.
Yeah.
That he does not fully understand why you would want to do things in this nature.
He doesn't comprehend it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else in this episode? I think we pretty much covered everything. But I am curious to see now that.
But now you got to cover the CIA agent because that's
I
the
was
most
about to
important
say,
element of the episode.
yeah, because the sister now is in a situation where she knows that she's compromised. I
But
mean,
now
she
that she knows that Spencer's revealed to her everything about their father.
yeah,
That's the key part. He let them know, this is not your company. This is our company. We control those patents. You do not. Your father was our puppet. Basic, and also telling them, why would Thomas Newton sell his company to your father? Like, there would be no reason for him to do that.
right.
So everything she's attempting to do to regain power or control power in the company, she now understands they don't care.
Pointless at this point.
Because they know who Faraday is.
Mm-hmm.
And they are way more concerned about the technology that Faraday can bring than they ever could care about this little company.
Right.
As the son said, other tech companies laugh at us because we haven't invented anything in over 40 years. Basically, they've not changed anything because they've never had to do anything. All of their ideas, all of their inventions, all their tech comes from Thomas. But Thomas patents have things that should have been, as Faraday said, because this is the only reason they're looking for that patent now. Thomas's inventions have certain elements should have already been in place on Earth. So now that they're not in place on Earth, they have to go back and put it in place on Earth. So these are things she was holding on to, things that she felt she didn't want anybody to know about. So if you play the difference between her and Hatch, when Hatch was revealing and telling people, no, we have patents in this, we have patents in this. And she's been holding guard of these patents like she's not supposed to release them. But she fully didn't understand why she was doing it.
Do you think that was her dad telling her to do that in the event that it's used by somebody the wrong way, or do you think it was more so to safeguard it from a financial standpoint?
Her father was horrible and more corrupt than anyone. So no, he could care less about it getting in the hands of the wrong people. So they were trying to find ways that they can profit the most off of it.
That's sick, bro. That's sick.
But now that we're in a place where the CIA has fully inserted themselves into this conversation, the biggest question is what happens when Faraday find out who they are.
I mean,
because I said, you see, he went off when he realized that Thomas's name was scrubbed from the internet.
Yeah.
And Thomas created the internet.
Oh yeah, they did mention that. They did shoot on that. I don't know that he's gonna care because I still think he's gonna keep to the same directive, but I think he's gonna be cautious of them.
Well, no, keep in mind though, if he finds out who this guy is, then you find out the entire story of Thomas. He's going to care. He's going to care a lot. Because keep in mind, again, everything that happened with Thomas that went horrible bad is because of them. They dissected him.
Yeah.
Like, if that's gonna weigh on another alien, which you did too, the alien hero.
I'm just trying to figure out how he would actually retaliate. And the interesting thing is CIA agent playing him like a fiddle because he was like, look, give him the patent. You're gonna run this. She's like, what you talking about? Like, no, we're gonna dangle him. We're gonna let him get what he needs so we can figure out how to best manage everything else. Because she didn't want to do it. She did not
because once his device is created, it changes the world.
Yep.
And the last thing they want is for him to change the world and them not have control over it. The same issues they had with Thomas.
Right.
We don't want you to change anything unless we completely control what you change.
Right. And I think he's also trying to look for Thomas too. I
Well,
think that
everybody's trying to find Thomas
I think that Spencer's end game is honestly to get to Thomas.
because he thinks Thomas is the key still.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand it's a chance that that key has moved on to Faraday.
Right.
He knows Faraday, and he knows Faraday is possibly an alien like Thomas was. He
Mm-hmm.
just still thinks Thomas is the most important one.
Right.
And at this point, Thomas isn't the most important one.
Right. Um, I'm just more curious to see what happens next because once they go into implementation phase, wouldn't there be people trying to gun for Faraday? Not just the government, but like people that those people that are what are they
When,
called?
when not, because they got the ultimate protection. You're not going after him with the CIA there. It's humanly impossible. The only people that they were worried about, or should be worried about, is the CIA. No one else matters in this situation.
So you don't think it would be like those what are those called? Fanatics. Like conspiracy theorists that
No,
are like and what I mean is not necessarily people like assassinate or trying to assassinate him, but like people perpetuating that, oh wow, this is not human. Because I mean, the reason why I bring all this up is because I keep going back to the first episode. Like people say I'm this, people say I'm that, and so I'm wondering if those are the beginning stages of that. Because even when they saw his picture, people were like, oh, this is the guy, this is the guy, um, and everybody's trying to make a run at it. And so I'm just curious to see how the public perception is going to be.
people are eager for information.
Right?
That's it. It ain't a situation they can. One, they shouldn't even be anywhere close to the situation because they can't get into the company.
That's the thing. Yeah.
The only thing is, again, the key element of this is the CIA. No one else matters here. It's the CIA. It's the siblings understanding exactly who their father was. It's them still trying to search for Thomas Newton and then trying to create this device. But understanding that at this point, the moment you create the device, the CIA would do nothing but take it. There's no way in hell they would let you implement it.
Do you think? Where do you think Thomas is during all of this? Where is Thomas?
Dead. That's
I
what
don't.
I've always assumed.
So I would assume that too, but he communicated to Thomas.
In a tornado.
Yeah, like I felt like it was like a form of communication, like a you know how like a
Because
no,
you already know Thomas is blind because he no longer has eyes.
right,
We know he's still compromised because he was still drunk there
right.
with Faraday. Like, in all honesty, finding Thomas solves nothing.
It,
With now, you need to find his work before he became compromised. A compromised Thomas Newton does nothing for Faraday's mission. That's why Spencer looking for Thomas makes no sense here.
but do you think that Thomas, even though yeah he's compromised, he had fail safes? Like I felt this is what I feel like. This is my thought. I think that Thomas is somewhere protected, not necessarily by somebody, but he's put himself in a situation where nobody can touch him. I don't know if it's something he's created or
If
like a VPN, so to speak. Like
if
he's
that
bouncing all over the
if
place.
that would have been the case, they would have a lot of explaining to do because it would be completely different from the Thomas by the end of the film.
Mm,
There's no grand scheme at the end of the film with Thomas. Thomas is compromised, and I don't mean that in a way where he can even rebound himself. He can't.
hmm.
So that they would have to explain how we went from that Thomas to a Thomas that's fully functional in any way. But
Okay.
his conversation with Faraday already shows you he's not fully functioning at all.
Nah, he's still. Yeah, he's
So
talking all out of his stuff.
the only thing important about Thomas is his patents that company is controlling.
Yeah.
Because you notice Faraday's not saying I need to find Thomas.
No,
He
no.
needs to work. That's all he needs is the work that should have been done.
Right. What was I gonna say? There was one other thing. This reminds me the company situation reminds me of Steve Jobs in Apple. It's so strange. Like from an implementation stage and from like innovation stage, like it's like okay,
Oh,
a lot of
well, yeah.
innovation.
Steve Jobs did steal a lot of ideas from people.
Oh,
If you're trying to like convey it that way, yeah, Steve
oh,
Jobs stole lots of ideas from people
oh.
and
No,
converted it
I'm
into his
talking
own.
about the company innovating since him, regardless of where all this stuff came from. I'm talking about like from an innovation standpoint, like coming up with something brand new. Since him, there hasn't been anything brand new that come out of nowhere, and I felt like that was kind of like reminiscent of the Origin Company with Thomas Newton. That's what I was implying. That's all.
Yeah, that she was implying the way Apple was until they stole the ideas from other people and implemented some of them.
Hey, we are not talking
And
about
then
the
their
Fitbit.
their their leader became this tech genius that he was before, but not to this extent. That is what the company looks like, more like, not necessarily what's happening with. I wouldn't compare it to Apple now. You would have to compare that to Apple when Apple was down on his luck, when people saw the company as a joke.
Are you talking about the initial stages of it?
Not the initial stages. This was in like the mid '90s when people thought Apple was a joke.
What are you talking about? Um.
If you compare it to the company that's ran by Edie,
Mm-hmm.
it is almost comparison to Apple in the '90s. It is a tech
Oh.
company that at one point had lots of promise. They were doing all this amazing stuff, and then it stopped, and people started looking at them like they were a joke. That's what happened with Apple in the '90s. People started looking at Apple like they were a joke.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. I think that's it. I think we've covered pretty much everything on this episode. Where do you think we're going next with this story?
At this point, it's just finding out all the patents that Thomas has. You should at this point find out everything that goes on with this company. That's going to be the key part here. Find out everything with the company, all these secrets, all these patents that Thomas had that they have been hiding and sitting on for some weird reason, and why.
So, do you think that Thomas orchestrated it that way, or do you think it was her dad orchestrated that
Well,
way?
remember though, the CIA took the company away from Thomas.
Right.
Yeah, they took it away from Thomas. So it wasn't Thomas's doing at that point. It was the father's doing. But that's because he possibly couldn't understand half of the things that Thomas had set up. So the moment they removed Thomas and put him in place, he wasn't like this smart guy who could figure out everything that Thomas had.
He literally hadn't. He didn't know what to do with it.
Yep.
He couldn't understand it or comprehend what to do with it. And then the government was fine with that because it wasn't whatever was going to come out of it. They had stake and control over it, no matter what. That's crazy. Yeah, I really do appreciate the show, like going to these different levels with it, because it's constantly making me think and ponder different stuff, whether it's the human relationships, whether it's like the past. And again, you guys, I've not seen the original movie or the 1987 version either. So yeah, I have nothing to say one way or another, but I find it is fascinating to kind of go into this realm of like, oh wow, this is actually a really interesting story, how it's progressing, and this is kind of feeling like a sequel at this point to me. At this point, would you say this is all the way a sequel?
At this point, it's always a sequel.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a sequel to this is a continuation of the story, because Thomas never fulfilled his mission because of what happened to Thomas.
Got it. Yeah. I don't have anything else. Lucas, you got anything else? My camera died.
Nope, not at all.
On that note, we will be back next week for episode 5. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell button. We've got a couple different reviews coming out. I think we're going to have the next Halo episode that's going to be coming out. We've got The Baby on HBO Max. We've got Summertime Rendering. We've got Spy Family. We've got Star Trek, Brave New World. So we got a lot of content coming, and hopefully you guys do enjoy it. And on the 27th, something's coming out that we're also going to be doing coverage for as well. So pay attention to Netflix. It's going to get very strange. All right, you guys. We'll be back.
Falling out the top of the on my timeline. Ain't nothing on